I would like to show you how to work with HTML forms and how to use PHP to process and display the data from the form. You first always need to make sure that the data the user enters will be accurate and also non-malicious. Users can enter malicious code in text boxes. Therefore, you need to validate that they contain the correct information and also limit the number of characters allowed. You can validate with JavaScript, with HTML5, and with PHP. You want to make sure that the data going into the database is valid and complete. Form page is a plain HTML page, so we have a .html extension. However, it will be processed with a PHP script. Every HTML form element has a unique name attribute which identifies that form element for the server or for PHP. You will commonly see a corresponding ID attribute with the same value. The ID attribute is used for JavaScript and CSS. So you commonly see both a name and ID. The name attribute is what we will be using. So we have a unique way of identifying every one of our form elements here. Radio buttons all share the same name value. Only one out of the group can be clicked. Because the user does not type in anything, rather they check the radio, we code in the value. Here is our name for the text area, and the user will enter the value. When the user hits the button, input type equals submit, it calls the action of the form, and the name value pairs are sent to the action, which is typically a PHP script on the server using a method. The most commonly used method is a post. Method equals get sends the data in the URL, which I will show you shortly. So we have this concept of name value pairs. Text boxes do not need a value attribute because the user enters the value. So here is my form. I have entered a value, I have checked a button, which indicates the value, and I have entered more information. I would like to point out to the URL. This is an HTML file. However, I did not add an action. Therefore, the form is going to be posted to the actual file. The reason I'm doing this is because I have used a method equals get, and I want to show you a quick and easy way to see the name value pairs in the URL of your file. One way to test your name value pairs is by using the print_r PHP function. If you pass it a variable, it will return the value of that variable. In our case, we are passing it $_post. That is a global server variable. That is essentially an array or a collection of all the name value pairs. Now I will submit the form. And here we see the array being returned with our name value pairs. This is the value of the name attribute for the first text box. The user entered Teresa Pelkie. The value for the name attribute for the email, name equals email, and here is the value. Phone was the value for the name attribute. Here is the user value. Heard was the value for the name attribute. Here is the value the user checked. And here is the text area, name and value. So these are the name value pairs being sent. So it's not a bad idea to use print_r just to make sure that everything is being sent correctly. When you're finished, you can comment it out. So this is how we retrieve a value. $_post and the value of the name attribute. So this was name equals name. This is the form element. Name equals name. I retrieve the value the user entered using $_post, and I pass it the value of the name attribute. Now we have the email box, and we have name equals email. I use $_post email. That will retrieve the value that the user entered. So this is the process for retrieving the values. It's pretty simple. We just pass the value of the name attribute for that form element. However, we want to store them in a variable. We will be using those variables in the output. Notice that all of my PHP processing is on top of the doc type. This does not need to be in the body. It can be in the body. You may see people putting it in the body. I do not recommend that. I do not recommend cluttering up your HTML document with unnecessary processing code. This can be placed on top of the doc type. When you echo or print information back to the user, it needs to be in the body because it is content. So here we have our echo statements that are telling the user what they entered. So I have echo $name, which is what they filled in for the name box. Here we have echo $email, which is what they filled in for the email box. And this is inside the HTML. We typically define the variables in the processing section, and then we use them in our output inside the body. The results page is an HTML document. Even though it has a PHP extension, we still need to code it with good HTML5 structure. Now, this was just test information for ourselves. Here we have a complete, nicely laid out, correctly formatted HTML document. So every form element has a name attribute. The user enters the values. When we hit the submit button, the name value pairs are sent to the action of the form, which is a PHP script, where they are then processed and displayed.